What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Lead. Your host, is always, Harley Dugan. Got a very special guest in front of me right now, John Crumpler from TheTexansWire. I have been looking at TheTexansWire since before the age of Twitter for me. So I never really was on Twitter for a long time, actually. So my news sources came from sports radios, 610, 790, 1560 at one point, Texans Wire, and Reddit. That was my sources, and I always loved looking at the Texans Wire, liked reading their articles a lot. So without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself, John.
Hi guys, my name's John Crumpler. I write over at the Texans Wire. You can follow me on Twitter at TexansDoc. In my free time, when I'm not talking about the Texans, I'm a medical student at Emory. I'm hoping to go into internal medicine or pediatrics one day, but I'm excited to talk about football right now.
No sleep for this guy. There is no sleep.
I find time.
He finds time, but there is no sleep for John, man.
No, not until we hire a head coach, Harley.
Yeah, man. Quick update real quick on the Texans. So if y'all didn't know, the interview request has been sent for Kevin O'Connell. They completed the interview with Jonathan Gannon. That's pretty much the update. We're still in search for a head coach. What is your thoughts real quick, Crump, on both Jonathan Gannon and Kevin O'Connell?
Okay, so I'll start with Jonathan Gannon. So when the news came out, it's hard not to feel a bit apprehensive when you watch all of Twitter, all of Philadelphia Twitter say, please take him. But you look at the coaching circles he's been a part of, and you look at the relative results of the team. I think a lot of people had the Eagles to finish bottom 5, bottom 10 this year. I'm warming on the idea of Gannon. It looks like he is like a high, like 2 safety person is what I read. And injuries and Philly's personnel kind of prevented him from playing the kind of defense that he would have liked to have run. And he's the kind of guy who's been in the circles that if he wasn't a first-year I would say if he wasn't on Philly, if he was on a more talented team, I think he could have the hype of like Brandon Staley last year or this year, like D'Amico Ryans, like guys with more talented defense who are able to get more from that. So I like Gannon. He's probably not my favorite candidate. And then Kevin O'Connell. It's hard to know in Los Angeles how much can you attribute to the coordinators with how good Sean McVay is. But the people that have worked for McVay have been very successful once they've gone elsewhere. I would not be averse to hiring him. And it would honestly be a pretty refreshing change of direction for the franchise in terms of, I can't think of the last time we went into a game and I thought offensively, like our schematics, like good luck with this game plan,
Yeah, I understand that because, I remember the Kubiak days and I already know the offense. There's going to be a bunch of runs from Foster. There's going to be some bootlegs. There's going to be some play action rollouts from Schaub. He's going to underthrow Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson will make a spectacular catch and make Schaub look 1,000 times better accurately than what he originally is. And OD's going to be sprinkled in there. And then you're going to have that one crazy catch from Kevin Walter from out of nowhere. Just a crazy clutch catch from Kevin Walter. So that was the offense for Coobs. A lot of running, a lot of that.
When I think of the Bill O'Brien era offense, I think of Alfred Blue. Yes. If you need 3 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. If you need 10 yards, he's going to get you 3. I think it would be really fun to have a head coach who brings something to the table schematically, especially with how the league is evolving and changing. And this is no slight to Davis Mills, and I think he has a lot of room to improve. But right now we're looking at a quarterback who's actually playing really well outside the pocket, I want to say, before. He's impressed me with his ability to extend plays this year. That's something that we saw that wasn't on tape as much at Stanford. But still, he is a pocket passer. He does not have a rocket arm. I think he can make all the throws, but he's not, we're not trotting a guy with Allen Mahomes level arm strength out there. So having someone to get the best out of the weapons that we do have, and I think that I think there are spots where we can put Nico to go win on third down, so our big body receiver, and then find ways to move Brandon Cooks around the field, get him open. I'd like to have an offensive coach in that respect.
Yeah, there's totally agree with you there. Kevin O'Connell could be a really breath of fresh air for the Houston Texans offensively, which seems like we know the three plays that they use since Kubiak, Bill O'Brien. We always knew what they were going to do. Kevin O'Connell, I would not know what to do. It'd be interesting. I'm very intrigued if he would be the head coach and what the offense would look like. So we're going to segue that into the what's going to be the main principle of this video, and it's going to be, John, how would you fix the Houston Texans? So I'm telling you right now, I've told this to James, I've told it to Jordan. You are the third guest on here. You are Nick Caserio. How would you fix the Houston Texans?
Okay, let's say I'm Nick Caserio. The first thing you have to look at is the coaching staff. This team's not moving anywhere until we make a head coaching hire. So let's discuss that. I think this is a pivotal hire. They were talking about it last night on Spaces, the idea that the clock is now ticking for Caserio. I think these wins and these losses are going to be attributable to him. While last year, I think every article I wrote, I used the term lost season, and about everything you read mentioned what happens for Houston so much as it doesn't hurt the draft order. It doesn't really happen. There wasn't a lot to lose. I do think now there is something to lose. This team's going to have some cap space. They've got some young guys we feel pretty excited about, and Nico, Davis Mills, Jonathan Greniard. We'd like to see them improve and be put in spaces to succeed. And ultimately, in a weaker AFC South, I think wins are going to be expected, and that starts with the head coaching job. If I was Nick Caserio, I want Brian Flores. Flores is my guy, and I think that's for two reasons. One, I think Caserio, and we can't pretend to actually know these people. It's just what we read. We get to hear the interviews. We get to read about them. I do think it's going to require a very specific kind of person to work with Caserio in terms of how involved he wants to be. It looks very possible that Nick is the most involved general manager in the league. He's the most hands-on guy. We see him at practice. We know he's on the headset in games. This is Nick's franchise right now. And not everyone's going to be open to that. And maybe Flores won't either. There are reports that he wouldn't be. But I do think bringing someone in, and I don't want to be the Patriots South. You guys don't want to be the Patriots South either. But we like Nick. We trust Nick a lot. And I want someone who's compatible, 1, 2, capable, and 3, that can challenge him as his equal. And I think Flores coming in, I know it ended very rough in Miami, but he exceeded expectations there of extremely limited quarterback play, I would say, for all 3 years, and limited offensive weapons. Devontae Parker didn't play a bunch of games this year. I think Will Fuller caught 6 balls for $8 million before he said, peace out. And then what that ended up doing is they just forced the ball to Jalen Waddle. And I'm sorry, a rookie wide receiver is not going to generate a successful offense in the NFL. And don't tell me Jamar Chase is doing that. Joe Burrow and that's a collective thing. No one player is gonna change that. So I'd like Flores a lot. I think he outperformed expectations. I think we saw some really brilliant game plans. What comes to mind to me, remember when they were 1-5 and they went to Baltimore? And I think they dialed up the most defensive back blitzes in the last 10 years or some crazy stat like that. And he just put together this brilliant game plan to stop Lamar Jackson. And really, the Ravens were hot right then. They probably should have made the playoffs if Jackson doesn't get hurt. That's a very good team. That's a tough place to win. I want a coach that can win us games with his side of the ball. And that was one of the reasons we had to move on from David Culley. Nice guy, let his coordinators do his thing. But at some point, you want a guy who foundationally is giving you an edge. And I think Flores does that. He has the most proven track record of any of the New England people it could be. And he's going to challenge Nick. And I trust Nick, but I don't think any organization succeeds behind just one man. It's a collective effort. And I want someone to be able to push back and say, hey, these are my guys. Have we thought about this? So I'd probably be going very hard after Brian Flores if I was Nick Caserio.
Yeah, hey, I'm all up for it. You give me a guy like Brian Flores, who, like you said, has a more proven track record than the rest of the New England guys, a la Jared Mayo, a la Josh McDaniels, who, yes, he had his little tenure with the Denver Broncos.
It was a
Not
disaster.
so muchly successful. Hey,
Yeah.
playoff win, Tim Tebow, crazy, just
I don't
play.
think that was him. I think he got fired the year before that.
Really, was it? I
I
see.
don't think that was
That's what I think of when I think of Josh McDaniels. I think of that play, and
whatever.
it probably wasn't even him, and that's sad. That's very sad, because that's what I think of when I think of Josh McDaniels, and that sucks because if that's not a part of him, that tells you already what he is as a head coach for me. Because my biggest issue with him was the Indianapolis Colts. How are players going to follow him? How are
Mhm.
players are going to be able to trust him? I understand, this is a different team, but players talk across the league. Everyone talks across the league. How are you supposed to buy into a coach that quit on a team? Hired his whole staff, everything. He's ready to go. And he doesn't that's
Mhm.
hard to sell for me. And that's where I think Brian Flores has a little bit of a step over with everyone else. You look at his coordinators. mm, Offensively is where I have my question marks. Defensively, you look at a guy like Patrick Graham potentially to be his defensive coordinator. He was a guy that was with the New York Giants, performed well if you want to consider that the Giants had a bottom three offense. And I thought Patrick Graham really outperformed himself with an extreme lack of talent on the
Mhm.
defensive side of the ball. So to me, that's impressive to talk about. Another defensive coordinator, obviously, if they clean staff with the Dolphins, Josh Boyer, 6 years with the Patriots, defensive backs coach for the Patriots, is now the DC at Miami. I did talk to Alex Dono, who works with Miami Dolphins content. He does 5 Reasons Sports on YouTube, and he seemed very knowledgeable on what was going on down there. And he let me know that it seemed like Brian Flores, and this is just his eyes speaking, but it seemed like Brian Flores was the one calling the plays at the
Mhm.
Baltimore game and moving forward with the rest of the season. Because he
Hmm.
said the beginning of the season, they didn't have no cover zero, tons of blitzes. They didn't do that in the beginning of the season. And then after it seemed like the Houston game, Baltimore games commences, all of a sudden the defense looks different. So when it's his eyes talking, I don't know how concrete that is, but it seems pretty reliable coming from him who covers Miami Dolphins for a while.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty knowledgeable in my aspect. Offensively is where I have my question marks though. Defensively, I know Flores seems like he can hold it down. Offensively, though, you're looking at potential offensive coordinators could be Brian Ferentz, who's at Iowa. And from what Iowa fans have told me, he's like a middle of the pack offensive coordinator. If he didn't have a good defense, it would show up a lot of the holes offensively for him.
Mhm.
Obviously, he's the son of, I believe it's Kirk Ferentz, who's a longtime historical coach for Iowa. So he's a potential offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron, unlikely hire, but he's the offense coordinator for Seattle currently. He worked with the Patriots for many years. That would be an extremely good hire if I'm Brian Flores. He has a connection with the Patriots, Nick Caserio.
Mhm.
But again, this would be a lateral move for him. That doesn't really happen in the NFL because usually you're supposed to get promoted, not lateral moves. So they could
Especially
obviously.
they say Russ wants to come back too, and I think that's the guy who Russ pushed for, right? That's the kind of offense they wanted.
Yeah. So again, that's why I opened it with unlikely hire. And then that's why I end up with Pep Hamilton. Keep the continuity between him and Davis Mills. Hey, Davis Mills seemed to improve as the year went along, and Pep Hamilton has been aligned with him since Stanford. It just seems like they're fixated on becoming, a pretty good quarterback coordinator possible duo in the NFL. Hopefully that's what it manifests into. But I over just why not you just keep Pep Hamilton because unless there's some personal ties that I don't know about, I've looked at all the business ties, staff member wise, with Brian. No offensive coordinators really pop.
Mm-hmm. I will say I think it's notable that Pep Hamilton did not accept the interview with the Charlotte Panthers.
Yes.
And I know they're a bit of a disaster right now. I don't know how tuned in Houston fans might be to that, considering Carolina is a small market team who plays in the NFC. But Carolina is a mess right now with Matt Rule. People are not happy there. He's probably the worst coach that survived Black Monday. I think he's gone 5-11 twice in a row. They haven't really showed any improvement on. I mean, they had some nice defensive improvement, but they really, like, as a team, they're not doing much. And I don't know if he's really an offensive or a defensive guru. He's more of a culture builder, from what I recall, because he was at Baylor, correct?
Yes.
He won 10 games at Baylor, and then he moved to Carolina, and he also. He built another college program before Baylor.
Temple University. Did great at Temple. Great. And I'm high on Matt Rule. I thought he was going to be very good for the NFL. I was a big fan of his when he went to Baylor. I was bought into Matt Rule. Like, I don't know, he just gravitated towards me. And so I really thought that the Panthers were going to be that team to come out this year and surprise some people, similar to how Brian Flores' Dolphins did last year. You know, they came out, went 10-6. I didn't expect that from the Dolphins.
My next thing I want to talk about in fixing the Texans is going to be the quarterback. Let's circle back to Carolina there, because I actually think there's some things Houston can learn from them. My next thing I want to talk about in fixing the Texans is going to be the quarterback. Let's circle back to Carolina there, because I actually think there's some things Houston can learn from them. I agree with you. I like how aggressive they are. Here's a question for you about a coaching staff. Let's say we do take a defensive guy, and it's, well, specifically with Flores, I do think it would be Pep Hamilton as well. It really sounds like that position's sort of being promised to him, and then, I mean, we've looked at a mix of defensive and offensive guys. I don't know why we interviewed Hines Ward. I thought that was kind of interesting, but I mean, assumably he's an offensive guy. He's a wide receiver coach. Kevin O'Connell, obviously, offensive coordinator for the Rams, and then Gannon's defense for Philly, and Flores comes from a defensive background as well. But if it wasn't Hamilton in Flores' staff, I do wonder if he might go outside the box, like someone just totally, I mean, not a New England guy or someone we could link it to, because that's kind of been the bane of his existence. He had 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years in Miami.
Yes. That is a big critique.
There might be a lot of incentive to say, take a risky hire, take someone who might leave in 2 years. He's so good. But like go to that McVay, that Shanahan coaching trees. Those guys run their West Coast offenses, and take someone, because you need to hit a home run, because clearly you've been bad at this.
Yeah.
I would like to see them take a chance on offense if they're not going to keep Pep. And I don't know how you would feel about that, but
look, to start off with defensive guys, I mean, other than Brian Flores, you're looking at maybe Todd Bowles. Okay, I don't mind Todd Bowles. I liked him when he was in Arizona. He had the Jets are just horrible. I didn't like that hire for I didn't like Robert Saleh to go over there. I thought Robert Saleh is could be a very good coach, but the Jets overall, organizational-wise, is just a disaster. That's just very tough to make them a winning team. It's extremely tough. They have just a depth of inadequacy on that roster. It's ridiculous. Matt Eberflus is someone I've always been high on. I'm a big fan of Matt Eberflus. I just think that coming from a 4-3 Tampa 2 scheme with Rod Marinelli, that's where he came from with the Dallas Cowboys. He could have became the defensive coordinator over there. He declined because of the respect he had for Rod Marinelli, and what he did to transform his 4-3 Tampa 2 scheme with the Colts, making it more of a cover 3 scheme and adapting to the deeper plays, the big pass yardage from the NFL. And this comes straight from 2 years ago when they faced the Kansas City Chiefs and they held them to that Sunday night football game. They held them to From what I remember at halftime, they only had like 10 points at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that went to the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And the Colts with Matt Eberflus, I use that game as evidence as to this guy's adjusted his scheme to today's NFL. That's where I had a problem with Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith is a boom or bust type of guy in terms of his defense. It's whether, you're either gonna score on us or we're gonna get a turnover. Yeah, that's what it is.
I will say Lovie adjusted through the season. I thought we saw a lot more mixed sets. I was impressed with how he adapted. I'm not trying to bring Lovie back, most likely, unless it's a really young offensive guy who wants some stability, then maybe that's what they would. Maybe they'd like to have Lovie back. I mean, who's in San Francisco right now? Everyone's talking
DeMeco Ryans.
On the offense. He's another conversation. I'd like DeMeco too, but Mike
McDaniel is who I want. And I don't know if the Texans will interview him. I don't know if they will request him. I am infatuated with Mike McDaniel. I thought that's who Robert Saleh should have grabbed for the New York Jets instead of LaFleur. Mike McDaniel was a run game coordinator just 2 years ago. And you think of the 49ers, what makes them go? The run game offensively. Because Jimmy G, passing game coordinator, was Mike LaFleur. That's not impressive to me. Their run game is what makes them go. Mike McDaniel is the one that sets that. He is my head coach for me.
Yeah, I'm a Texans fan. What's a running game?
So as I like to say, Tim Kelly's bread and butter, 3-1, is I'm so glad I won't have to see him next year, is what I'm hoping for, at least. As long as I just want to keep hearing head coaches. I don't want to hear nothing about David Johnson resign. But let's go back to what we were talking about. Let's get enough of bread and butter. I don't want burnt bread, toast and butter. I don't know what he is. My goodness.
I'd like him. I see really good things. I've seen some of the interview clips. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these offensive guys. I mean, to be coaching at the NFL level, they're all sharp, but it's hard not to be impressed with what you see from. Is it McDaniel?
Yes, Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, from McDaniel's. I mean, there's a lot of good directions we could go. I like Flores because I'm familiar with him and I love watching Miami. I'm not going to be devastated if we don't get him. The cast of coaches that we are interviewing right now is great. And the fact that guys are taking these interviews is really, I think it's a good signing. It's a good thing to see. This is not a year ago where our top two candidates, it was Frazier and Culley at the end, right?
Yep.
And no one else wanted. I mean, maybe Frazier had one other interview. If you remember, when we gave David Culley that interview, Twitter was like, they're doing this to get background on Eric Bieniemy so they can potentially offer him the job. They want to get more information on Eric. Yeah. And then it came out a week later, like they're bringing Culley back for a second interview. And I mean, all this to say, this is not 2021. I think if I'm the Texans, as the question asks, you nail the head coaching hire. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I'll be excited to see what Nick picks.
What do you think about, whatever you want to start off with, whether it's free agency or draft, whatever you want to start off with, kick it off.
All right, let's start with the quarterback position, just in general. And then we can talk about the rest of the roster. Because, I mean, we all know the quarterback's the most important position on the field. It's what you kind of have to build your team around. Unless you were elite on one side, or unless you're elite at running the football or elite on defense, which Houston will probably be neither of those things in 2022. We're gonna need a lot more pieces to become elite in those ways. You're gonna go as far as your quarterback can take you. And right now, Davis Mills is coming off of a really good rookie season. I mean, I was one of the biggest doubters of the pick. I wrote on draft night. I think I said, new year, same Texans, team blunders in selection of Davis Mills. Then 2 days later, I wrote he might get Josh Rosen because even if he played well, we're probably going to lose so many games where we could pick a quarterback. And that was true. But the good news is he played really well. and there's not a quarterback to draft. So my first thing is I'm not taking a quarterback in the first round. I'm not taking a quarterback in the second round. Davis Mills deserves to be the youngest quarterback on the roster, I would say. Unless I know Patriots guys that the Patriots like to take late quarterbacks. Maybe Nick brings that over. And if he wants to do that, so be it. But I'm not taking someone in the first or second round. I do, however, want there to be competition. And that can look like a few different things. I would be comfortable in the third looking at there's a lot of like these developmental quarterbacks. It seems this year no one wants to take a quarterback in the first round, but there's guys who you'd be comfortable taking in the second round, like Malik Willis, the guy from Nevada, Carson.
Oh man, Carson Strong.
That might be it. I could take a quarterback late on day 2, but my preferred option is you sign a veteran who can legitimately challenge Davis Mills, and that could look like you want Davis to win the job, but you don't want it to be easy. I think the highest end you could go, I'm looking at the free agent quarterbacks right now. You could bring in, I think Andy Dalton might even be too high level. I wouldn't look at Fitz. I would personally be interested. I don't know how you'd feel about this, in a guy like Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Who's a high-end veteran who will want to win the job, and I think could legitimately push Davis. And I mean, worst case scenario, he doesn't. I mean, Marcus doesn't win, but you could have packages for him to do things that Davis can't do. Wow, because I think it's going to be another year before this roster can really have a ton of talent, and I think a guy like Pep could find good running packages of Marcus Mariota. I think I would want to sign a veteran who can compete, or draft a rookie of pseudo similar status and let them duke it out. But my goal is that Mills wins a tough competition and gets a lot of first team reps. Yeah. What do you think about the quarterback competition?
Yeah. So like we talked about before the video started, I had mentioned, Jacoby Brissett's another name out there that's obviously going to be linked because of the New England connections. Whether or not I want him, I'm not crazy high on Brissett, but I'm not looking for him to be the starting quarterback. I'm looking for Davis Mills to win this competition battle. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a battle. Davis Mills can go into knowing that he's the starting quarterback, but the job is still up for grabs. But he should win that job. Because to me, in my opinion, competition just drives better results, and it makes the even person more precise, more accurate, more comfortable, more, just makes them all around a lot better, And there is the other side of the, where it's, he's always going to be looking over his shoulder, and, what if he just worries too much? Well, then he shouldn't be the starting quarterback for your team, because franchise quarterbacks, and I'm not saying Davis Mills is that guy, but we are putting our marbles in him right now. And if he wants to be a starting quarterback for the NFL team, whether it's the Texans or anywhere else in his future, hey, man, these are the types of uncomfortable stigmas that are going to happen in your career. So don't give me that, he's going to be uncomfortable. No, give him a competition. He wins it out. He deserves the job. He can't win. He can't beat Jacoby Brissett and a wasted second overall pick in Marcus Mariota. He can't beat those two guys. He don't deserve to be a quarterback.
I would agree with that. And think about Brissett's an interesting name because Brissett has such a large body of work. I think it would be impossible for him to win the job in camp. So he would be the kind of backup for Mills where, okay, it's my starting job. I'm going to get all the first team's reps in training camp. But Brissett is just good enough that if I'm horrible, like if we're 0-5 and I am throwing a bunch of picks, like the coaching staff can pull me and expect to have, like, Jacoby Brissett's somewhere between the 35th and like the 42nd best quarterback in the league. Like, he's going to give you like the bare minimum output. And so he threatens in that way where it's not it's not like he's an undrafted rookie that they have no chance of going to. I do think Mariota could push. He's talented enough. He hasn't done anything in the NFL. Maybe I'm going too many fond memories of watching him at Oregon, but I think he has the kind of talent where he could potentially like push Davis in more of a way, and has some skill sets where if we were doing poorly, okay, bring him in, try to win a different way. But I think the cheap veteran backup is probably what I want to do with the quarterback. But a legitimate option if Mills were to regress that we could win games with. But that's going to come down to how much do we want to pay guys.
Yeah.
Because I do think some of these free agent quarterbacks, I mean, they're going to find money. It's just about how much. I mean, I'm looking, Dalton was in this list last year. He was paid $10 million. We're not going to pay $10 million for a backup quarterback. Mariota was making 3.5. Mitch Trubisky made 2.5. I think $3 million, $3 to $4 million is right in the range we'd want to spend. So those kind of guys. AJ McCarron's making 1.2. I wouldn't want to see him in a Texans uniform again. You were talking about Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Just someone like that. Make it interesting. Don't make it easy. But we have to have more options because we were talking about the Carolina Panthers. They've been so aggressive at quarterback, and they've missed. They've missed every time, but they were aggressive, and that's okay because until you have your franchise quarterback, I mean, it's like dating. You got to keep dating until you meet the right person for you. And you got to keep cycling through quarterbacks and they're all wrong until they're right. Until you find that franchise guy, you really can't settle. And Davis he showed a lot. I think there's a chance he could become that guy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty outspoken on, I think a lot would have to go right for him. It's just because of his physical restraints. It would really be a lot of winning up here. And that's so much harder to do. I mean, you watch the elite quarterbacks right now in this league, other than, I guess Joe Burrow's not winning that way. But Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, but they have physical tools that can eliminate their mistakes when they're having a bad game. And Davis doesn't have any of those. So it'll be tough for him to become an upper echelon franchise guy. And until we see him do that, we have to keep looking for options.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Like I said, I've already said it many times. I think competition would help him out and could obviously help him into becoming the quarterback what we hope for him to be. So, yeah, definitely agree with that. What else you got for me, John?
You want to talk about free agency?
Let's go ahead and whatever you think is the biggest holes in the team and what do you think they should address in free agency? Anybody that you got in mind or positions?
I mean, if we go down the depth chart, something I do want to talk about is running back.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember the last time we had a good running game. I would really like to find someone who is not Rex Burkhead. It was bold for them to try to fill the team. Or really, God, at times it felt like our offense was designed around Rex Burkhead. It would be 2 runs in a row and then a screen. And he performed really admirably. That's not what I would like to see a lot of in the backfield. He's great depth to have. I'm glad he's coming back. But I would look in either the second round or I think we're so talent devoid, it might be a little early to spend early draft capital on a running back. Looking at the free agent class, a guy like Ronald Jones, I think, would be pretty cheap. James Conner's a free agent. Marlon Mack. Rashad Penny's end of the season makes me think he's going to be expensive. Leonard Fournette and Melvin Gordon will be expensive. But guys like Damian Williams, Ronald Jones, I'd love to try to get someone like that for a cheaper 1-year deal and say, hey, we'll give you the kind of volume you didn't get to see in Tampa, or like Penny say, like, we'll give you the volume you never got to see in Seattle, and really let like a younger, talented guy. I mean, Penny's 26, Ronald Jones 24. They had high draft capital they never really lived up to. I think you can find talent in the free agent pool at running back really well. And I think there's nowhere better we saw that than, Arizona this year. Didn't James Conner, I know at one point, I think he got hurt, but James Conner was leading the league in touchdowns.
Yeah, he exceeded expectations at Arizona.
Nice. So I'd like to get a free agent running back. People will disagree with me. I do not want to spend any big money at receiver. I would consider not spending any money there altogether. I do think we need a reliable third option for Davis Mills. I just think that might be easier to find late in the draft. This is going to be a really deep draft. I know it doesn't look like a very sexy draft in terms of top end talent this year, and people have talked about that. But something we had to think about is with all the people that came back because of COVID, I think there's going to be more draft eligible players than ever. So those late rounds, if Nick can hit like he did in last year's draft and this year's draft, you're going to find some really solid starters. And then I'm looking at the free agent names right now. You would be able to get some guys at a bargain to come in and be that third receiver. And if we could get a reasonably priced guy to come in and play the slot, or even someone where it makes it you have a perimeter receiver so that Cooks can take reps in the slot. Like I said, I think it'd be good for this offense to find more ways to get him involved. I would do that. But obviously finding more help on the perimeter for Davis Mills would be huge. And then my next big thing, and this will kind of encompass general talk of player acquisition. We can talk about the first round a little bit. I would want to find ways to invest in the interior offensive line. It's been bad for a very long time, and it's time to forget the tackles. I know everyone who talks about football talks about the tackles, but I mean, Tyus Howard had a really good season. Let him play left tackle. Work on re-signing him. I think you'll be able to do it. And we can figure out right tackle. I mean, this is under the assumption. I don't know about you. I think Laramie Tunsil's gone.
I think so too. Obviously with the situation he's had, the injury that has been prolonged for the last 4 months.
Did you hear Nick this week talk about it? Caserio?
Yeah.
In 6'10" when he was like that injury, whatever that is. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I just don't believe Tunsil. I think him and Caserio probably had a private conversation. She told basically just simplest, quickest terms, hey, I'm not really bought in this year. Caserio went, okay, you know what? Just stay injured the rest of the year. We'll trade you. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. And then you want to talk about the draft?
Yeah, let's get into it. What do you think? We got the number 3 pick, man. And what's your thoughts?
You want my hot take is, well, obviously it's tough because at number 3, if Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson are there, you probably do have to take them. I mean, football is really about. I think Colin Cowherd says this, and I agree with it. He says it's about quarterback. You make sure that the other quarterback is uncomfortable, and you make sure that your quarterback is comfortable. So you look at the top of the draft, it's quarterback, edge rusher, tackles. So if Hutchinson and we're not taking Evan Neal, like I said, I think this team is done investing heavy capital at tackle, or at least I would think. Hutchinson and Thibodeau are attractive, but I think that Kyle Hamilton is the can't miss prospect of the draft. He kind of reminds me of, not that they're anywhere near similar as played, but Quentin Nelson for the Colts that year was the prospect who everyone was like, this guy's the 99 overall. This is your can't miss prospect. It's just he plays guard. And they traded back to 6. They got him, and lo and behold, he's been one of the best offensive linemen in the league since he got in the league. With the position the Texans roster is in, you have to go get the best football players, and I think he might be the best at what he does in this draft. So I am very in on Hamilton. I'm pretty partial to good defensive back play, so I'm not going to hide my bias there. But also, we've had maybe the worst secondary in the NFL for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And I am tired of watching bad safety play. I think Hamilton comes in. He's a leader. He's really fun to listen to. If y'all, I think it's called Inside the Garage. It's the Notre Dame guys do a podcast. If you want to listen to him, I would like to have Hamilton in a Texans uniform next year. So that's where I would start at number 3. What are your opinions on our third pick?
Man, I am all in on Kyle Hamilton. I mean, my goodness. When I think Kyle Hamilton, I can't get the quote out of my head. John Harris. Everyone knows him, 6'10". He comes out on 6'10" sometimes with Mark Vandermeer. Obviously, he's Texans reporter. He's already came out and said that Kyle Hamilton, and these are humongous shoes to fill, he's comparing him at least to Sean Taylor. And that is humongous, enormous shoes to fill in. But when I look at Kyle Hamilton, I see the comparison The guy could play safety. He could play nickel. He could play corner. He could play linebacker. He could play in the box. And yes, all of those things he doesn't do, extremely well as compared to safety, but he does them very well. And he can play anywhere on the football field. He's a captain at Notre Dame. He's an instant leader for this team. And it's something that the Texans, in my eyes, defensively, when's the last time? And yes, JJ was that guy, but when's the last time you've had a no doubt, for sure leader on this team? I think JJ I think D'Amico Ryans, and I think him right away, where he was a guy that brought in the whole crew together. Listen to me. This is how it goes. This is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyle Hamilton is what, in terms of that aspect of leadership, I think that's what he can bring for the Texans. He's an all-around playmaker that is just no doubter at 3.
We haven't had a reliable player in the secondary since Kareem Jackson left, it feels like. He comes in, and this might be controversial, but Kyle Hamilton would come in at our biggest position of need and be the most talented player on our defense immediately.
Not controversial. That's instantly.
It's a no-brainer for me. It's not a popular pick because he's a safety, and I understand feeling apprehensive about that. God, I almost wouldn't even want to trade back to justify because I don't want to lose him. We are such a talent-deficient football team. If you can add Kyle Hamilton to your roster, you should do that. So if I'm Nick Caserio, I don't care what combination of Hutchinson, Neal, or Thibodeau go 1 and 2. I cannot imagine Hamilton goes 2 because I think it's really hard for the Lions to let they need a defensive end really badly. Not that we don't, but with how they play, I think they'll take one of those guys. And then ditto Jacksonville. I would be running to the podium to turn in the Hamilton card. And then do we want to talk about a potential Watson Tunsil return as the last thing?
Hey, man, if you're Nick Caserio, are you doing that trade?
I'm not going to talk about the possibility that Watson could stay because I'm still mentally he's gone. So let's say you do have to trade him. Yes, now is the time to trade him. You have to trade him this offseason because he's going to cost you $30 million. It's a $16 million. I'm looking at it right now. If you trade him pre-June 1, it's $24 million in cap savings with $16 million dead cap. I would look at the Giants. I don't think we'll get as many picks, but if you can get 5 and 7, I think that's so much more valuable than wondering when a pick in future years is going to come. And we could flip, and that's when I would really start. If we trade with the Giants, I want to trade back. And that's when you can start, let's go find capital for future years. And when you have that kind of capital, I was thinking about this today. If I'm at 5, I'm calling Pittsburgh at 20. I'm saying, what do you want to come up and get Kenny Pickett in a trade that would normally be impossible? But if we have 3 first-round picks, I don't have to take another top 5 pick because I've already got 2 in the top 10. So I would make that trade with the Giants. I would look to trade back with a quarterback-needy team that cannot control their destiny. Because this is kind of – everyone's comparing this to the 2017 draft where no one was high on the quarterbacks. So teams that could take them as a luxury kind of did it. That's when we grabbed Deshaun. That's when Kansas City came up and got Mahomes. People are going to talk themselves into these quarterback prospects. And if at 5 or 7 – because, I mean, I know Carolina's at 6. So – 5 would probably be the one that people would want. But I would call teams like Washington and Pittsburgh who may have thought, I don't want to pay what it takes to get up there, especially Pittsburgh. They probably think no one would move back that far. I would trade Deshaun to the Giants if we can. Heck, I'll take any trade packages that nets us the first that we want. I'm kind of starting to feel apprehensive. I mean, not apprehensive. I just don't care where he goes as long as we get the right return. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm over Deshaun Watson. Look, I'm not gonna bash him after he leaves. I don't like the idea of signing the contract extension and then not doing whatever it was. But After that, okay, but whatever happens, happens. I just hope we get, like you said, the right return. Give me the prospects. Give me the picks. Give me all the picks you can. I'd rather take picks over players, unless there's a player in there that's extremely young and I can still control his contract. Then yeah, I don't mind that. But it's got to be very intriguing for me. I'd rather get picks than players. But yes, give me the best return for it.
And then I feel the same way. I feel even more inclined about trading Laramie Tunsil just because he's so expensive and he's a great pass protector. But if we don't have an elite quarterback who we're going to build our game plan around anymore, like Deshaun Watson, I don't need to pay a left tackle that much money. And we can probably get 70% of him for 20% of the cost. I mean, that's a bit hyperbole, but we don't need Laramie Tunsil right now. He doesn't fit the direction of this organization. He doesn't fit the pieces we have. The one thing I would say is you have to get multiple pieces. I wouldn't just want to trade, like, people have brought up the Bengals as a very obvious destination because they need to protect Joe Burrow. But I wouldn't just want a first-round pick. I think that this team needs to turn the few sure things that we have, which frankly are just Deshaun Watson and Laramie Tunsil. Those are the guys that everyone in the league would like on their team if they do not have an elite left tackle or quarterback. You got to turn those into multiple pieces because that's how this roster is going to get better. We're going to miss on some picks. It's bound to. So I don't just want one shot at getting a great player back for Tunsil. So I'd be okay taking a 2023 first and then a day 2 pick this year. I mean, I'm okay with a delayed return there. Just make sure that as much as his trade damaged the roster, and we never could have known. I didn't hate the trade at the time because the thought was, hey, we're never going to be picking below 22 with how good Deshaun is. And that first year, that looked correct. Those first 2 years. But he wasn't on the 11-5 team. He was just on the 10-6 team, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the 10-6. So I trade Tunsil, get a few assets. Are you in the same position?
Yeah, I've already been on the trade Tunsil train. No offense to him. I like Laramie Tunsil. But at the end of the day, I just don't think he's interested with this team. I think that's just as simple as it is. I don't think he wants to be here anymore. Why do you prolong a finger injury as long as you did? Like, it's just a finger injury. We've seen several players come back with a club on their hand and go out there and play football. Like, if you're that into the team and that into the organization, you would have came back as soon as possible. So I don't think he's fully invested. I think that's why I want to trade him, because he's just he no longer wants to be here. Implicitly, this is all just opinion. I don't know if he, we don't know if he's had these personal conversations or not with Nick Caserio, but I think that's what it is. So yeah, I'm already all up for trading him. Again, I've always said offensive line play, you don't need great offensive linemen. You need good offensive linemen. As long as you have a good offensive line, you're be set. You're fine. The Buffalo Bills, I look at them, they have good offensive linemen. They're not great. I can't name a single offensive lineman from the Bills. I can't. But I know they're good offensive linemen because Josh Allen looks pretty damn good.
This isn't basketball. You're 5 offensive linemen. You don't need Kevin Durant to win. You need 5 good guys. It's a unit. It's a unit. I mean, I guess it's hard because people look at, like, that Dallas offensive line was so good. And they truly had 3 elite guys. They didn't win a Super Bowl. You don't have to have that to be competitive.
Yes.
I agree with you. All right, should I summarize my all the points we just talked about for the last 50 minutes, or?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead and
just summarize. If I am Nick Caserio, I'm hiring Brian Flores. I do not care who he brings in as defensive coordinator because he's so hands-on at the defensive spot. I'm retaining Pep Hamilton and promoting him to offensive coordinator. I'd like to sign Marcus Mariota or Jacoby Brissett to compete with Davis Mills in camp. I'd like to sign Ronald Jones to a 1-year deal to come in and take the bulk of the carries and let Rex Burkhead play third down. I would trade Laramie Tunsil. I would like to trade Deshaun Watson to the New York Giants and then trade back with at least one of the Giants' picks. I guess they might not give us both this year, but regardless, if you get another second-round pick, Houston, please trade back. We need more good football players. And speaking of good football players, I think it starts April 28th. I want Kyle Hamilton to be a Houston Texan.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with that. Give me all of that. Where's the dotted line? Sign me up.
I would sign it right now.
Sign me up because you give me Kyle Hamilton, and I'm excited. That is going to, as much as the fans are like, oh, no, he's like Jamal Adams. He is nowhere near Jamal.
He's not a box safety.
Yes. Jamal Adams is, he went 6, I believe, to the Jets. Yes, he was very good coming out of LSU. Good for him. That's not Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton is a very different kind of safety.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, though, this was great. Before we do end the video, like I said, I got a quick fire, rapid thoughts. Head coaches list. Who do you want as a head coach for the Houston Texans? We already have summed up some names already. We're going to kickstart it. Texans Twitter, for some reason, loves him. He's the first one on the list. Lovie Smith.
Absolutely not.
Jim Harbaugh.
He would never come here. Yes, if Jim Harbaugh wants to come here, I will drive to Michigan from Atlanta and drive him back to Houston. But no, he has every – I mean, I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Sorry, this goes away from the quick part. Harbaugh's probably a top 10 to 11 head coach immediately if he comes back to the NFL. Based on what he was when he was here, I think he would be phenomenal for any organization that gets him.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Jim Caldwell.
Yes, but I wouldn't be excited about it.
Yeah, I think like how you were mentioning earlier, 2-year head coach plan. And I know that's tough to say because usually as a GM, you don't get a third head coach.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be the idea for me and Jim Caldwell because I don't know, just for me and an aspect of Caldwell, he helps build a lot for this team culture-wise as well, too. I mean, he did exceptionally well for a Detroit Lions organization who's been the laughing stock of the NFL for however many years since their creation almost. I mean, let's be real. So, yeah, Jim Caldwell, I wouldn't.
I'd be okay with that. I would still say that we improved in the head coaching category significantly if Jim Caldwell is the Houston Texans head coach a month from now. It would not be the sexy hire that people are looking for.
Next one, Dennis Allen.
I don't even know who that is. I probably should. Who is that?
He is the defensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. He used to be a head coach for the Oakland Raiders. It's somewhat of a people looking at Dennis Allen. What he's done for the defense with the Saints has been pretty impressive. He's always a name, it seems like, every year that's thrown in.
And they have a great defense, but I consume a lot of football, and if I don't know who he is, I probably don't want him as our head coach.
There you go. Todd Bowles.
Yes, I would like Bowles. I actually think – I know we talked about this before the video. Maybe it was during the video, but he did a great job in New York. You want to talk about guys who probably got the short end of the stick after doing very well based on where they were. He kind of reminds me of Jim Caldwell, where he deserves another chance. Just also would not be a very exciting hire. Might be easier to get behind just because of how dominant his Tampa defenses have looked.
Yeah. Doug Peterson.
Yes.
Ooh. Matt Eberflus.
He won't come here, but also yes. I think Eberflus already is the finalist for 2 jobs that I think Chicago and Jacksonville.
Yep.
Yeah, we're Texans fans. We like our job more than Jacksonville. But I think it would be hard to say no to $70 million in cap space and 0 expectations and Trevor Lawrence. So
not bad.
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy.
No.
Byron Leftwich.
No.
Brian Dabble.
Yes. Also, don't think he would come here, like a lot of the people I'm saying yes about.
Yeah. Okay. We've already said it. Brian Flores.
Flores, I'm high on.
Josh McDaniels.
No.
Ooh,
No.
ooh. Jared Mayo.
Yes, I would need to be talked into it, but it would be very exciting, I
Mm.
think. And he fits, like I said, you need someone who can work with Caserio. If these next 3 or 4 years while he's here are going to work out, the head coach and the GM need to play nice, which it's been a while since it worked that way in Houston. Mayo could do that, and he's got that upside.
Mm-hmm. Sure does. Patrick Graham.
No.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Yes. That's
Ooh.
Pat's guy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like Hackett, though.
Yeah. The new introduction to the list, Jonathan Gannon.
He's kind of like Bowles. Well, obviously he doesn't have their resumes. He's another guy that I wouldn't be excited about, but I could talk myself into with time.
Mm-hmm.
Just not the sexiest hire. He has a lot to offer. I'm impressed with him, but probably not my favorite candidate.
Yeah. D'Amico Ryans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very easy to get excited about the former player coming back.
Kellen Moore.
No. No.
Clint Kubiak.
No.
Scott Turner.
No.
Kevin O'Connell.
Yes.
Oof. Oh, yeah. And then I wrap up the list with Mike McDaniel.
Absolutely.
So as you see, that is the Smasher Pass list. And I started off again with a few of the retread coaches, worked away to some of the coaches that we were in touch with last year, worked the way down to the New England coaches, then get to all of the new young minds that could be potential head coaches in the coming years. So the trend for you were a little bit half and half. You don't mind taking a risk. You also don't mind a retread and giving someone else another opportunity.
I want to win games. I am so tired of losing. And there are guys on that list. There are older guys and there are younger guys who I think can help Houston win games. Some of them are more known commodities, but that doesn't make them worse coaches. A lot of them had bad organizations, bad owners. Doug Peterson, like he and the Philly owner clearly did not get along. I would be more than happy to bring him in here. He did good things while he was there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a little mixed on Peterson. I wonder sometimes the articles kind of fray me away from him. But then again, why do I want Brian Flores? There's a lot of articles that came out on him that kind of are a little tense in my point of view as to why he could be a head coach. So you know what? Who cares? I have no aspect over it. Whoever they hire, it's the Texans. I'm going to root for them. I'm just a diehard fan at the end of the day, man.
Yeah.
It's sad to hear that sometimes.
If I was ever going to stop watching or stop writing, it would have been this year. And lo and behold, every Sunday I found myself in front of the TV watching the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed that. This was just good thoughts, good comments from John Crumpler. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at TexansDoc. It's right there. Go ahead, follow.
Yes.
Check out.
I'll be writing all off season, guys. Please follow me. I love responding to people who do read my articles. So love to meet some of you guys.
Yeah, no problem. We also have the Texans Wire. Make sure to follow them on Twitter. Make sure if you have any medical needs, hit up John. DM him.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's awake 24/7. He does not sleep. He's a monster. Okay. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to The Lead. I don't know why I had Texans Thoughts and Texans Unfiltered on there, but that's because I didn't edit it. So there we go. As always, guys, go Astros, go Rockets, go Texans. Screw the Braves. You have a great day.
Come on.